Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
everyone. Can you hear me, America? Am I frozen? I've been having some connectivity
No,
issues today.
it's working. Keep going.
All right,
Keep
let's
going,
go
Kim.
with it. Yeah, go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dojo Live recap show where we share with you our thoughts about last week's shows. And of course, with the hope of enticing you to catch them if you didn't do that already, and to introduce this week's shows. So without further ado, let's go. Last week, we actually had three very interesting shows. First up was Sterling Douglas, co-founder and CEO of Chelly, followed up with segment 2 of our AWS series, all about containers. And wrapping up the week was Joseph Schneier, I think is the right pronunciation, CEO and co-founder of Trusty.care, all about how healthcare works. So let's kick it off with Sterling Douglas at Chowley, talk about making tech accessible for small to mid-sized restaurants and insights into how hopeful entrepreneurs can begin carving a path within the restaurant tech industry. What was your takeaway from Sterling's show, America?
It was really interesting, and I actually got the opportunity to live the nightmares that I had when I worked as a what is the name for mesero in English? In English,
Waitress, waiter,
waitress.
waitress,
Yes, thank you for that.
wait
So
staff. Okay.
yes, so basically, what I learned
I
is
think the
that
PC term now is just server, right? We don't
oh,
give it a gender. I think you're just a server.
I don't know. Well, we will find out later. But yes, what I understood about this topic is that how with COVID there was this massive acceleration of online ordering directly with restaurants. And I like how he shared the journey of the company, the future of tech in this industry, and how the customer experience and the loyalty has been shifting at this point. So don't miss it if you have the opportunity to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing at Chowley is really interesting. I think food delivery, it's obviously the way I think that food is rolling out in the future. It was going to happen anyway. I think it was accelerated, of course, with COVID and people still wanting, that takeout experience, the restaurant experience, but unable to do that from their homes. And so we ordered in. And how that works for most places is that each ordering system has a single device, right? This is my Uber device, this is my DD device, this is my DoorDash device, et cetera, et cetera. And all this stuff is kind of coming in, and it just makes things challenging, right? For servers, for those who are preparing the orders, for the cook staff, billing, and everything else. And so what they've been able to do is streamline that all into basically one place. So not only is this making it easier for the restaurants themselves, but I think it's also amping up the customer experience, right? In terms of fewer messed up orders and all of that. And I think if I remember correctly in his show, I'm 1 second.
It's okay, office, remote. We totally get it, Kim. Is everything okay with Zoe? Okay, I guess that I would. Is it okay?
I'm sorry. Yes, that was as a mother watching your kids take a face plant here down the hall right from you. And here comes another one. I'm so sorry. Mi amor, give me a chance. Hello, everyone. Yes, working from home adventures. But yeah, it's really great how he mentioned the statistic of, maybe if you only have 5 out of 5% of your orders that have a mistake in them, but if that's out of 100 orders, that's 5 orders, right? And so how they're able to help with that, the idea of technology, the data that they're able to compile. And I just really love the niche that he's focusing on the small mid-sized businesses, right, as a
Oh
way
yeah.
for them to compete and to stay relevant. It's really the story. Love what they're doing. Wish Chowley the best. So our second show, of course, that was the second series of our segment of our AWS series. This time talking about containers being the gateway drug to the cloud. That was with Art Chan of AWS and Gustavo Romero, a senior, an Amazon, a principal DevOps engineer with Ancora. I'm a bit flustered, guys. Can you tell? What did you think of that show, America?
I think that I wasn't that familiar with this topic, but just for context, I remember that the last episode was all about migrating into the cloud. For now, this is a great opportunity. And the second episode is about containers, containerization, Did I say that correctly? Containerization. And basically, what I understood is that with microservices, you can run their own. You can do this with this kind of technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I think as non-tech folks ourselves, non-developers, it's hard for us. But I think the key here is containerization is where it's at. Most companies are doing this already. And so it's just this natural sort of segue into the cloud to basically take what you're doing anyway and amp it up. And we talked about, a lot of the benefits of containerization, and particularly when it's on the cloud. And what's interesting, I think, for me is when it really came down to testing, right? And the flexibility that allows for you to test for a few hours and only pay for a few hours, the advances in load testing to see, is this going to hold if I get a lot of hits and all of this kind of stuff. And really the ability to have that flexibility, again, that elasticity, and augmenting your capacity without the need for new hardware, which takes us back all the way to that first show, which is why put things on the cloud anyway. And it does help with a certain level of certainty in these uncertain times, and just allowing for you to really only pay for what you need, and not and to grow, right? If you have to, or shrink if you have to, in an easy way. So yeah, check that out. We've got the third show for ADOS coming up next week on Wednesday the 30th. And we wrapped up the week with Joseph Schneier, who is the CEO and co-founder of Trusty.care. He spoke about surprising things that they have learned and how healthcare works. What was your takeaway from that show?
It was all about patient behavior. And I remember that the guest shared a personal story, and that explains a lot about how complex this industry is, even for someone who works in this industry. So what they are doing basically is to getting the patients the right insurance services from the start. And so you
Yeah,
can
and
have
by doing that, they're
yeah,
actually putting it in the provider's hands, right? Which is interesting, because, and I think actually my testament to this show was that ability to pivot, which I think was Joseph's story as well. I think originally they thought, how can we help patients or people, the insured, and it actually ended up flipping around. We're gonna make it easier for the insurers, who then in turn make it easier for the insured, which I thought was really interesting. And you're right, personal story of how it came out with his brother, who I believe was in a car accident. I think thankfully fine, but just having to kind of reverse through this path of insurance, and even with somebody who had industry knowledge, finding it challenging. And he thought, we got to fix this. I mean, if this was a challenge for me with someone who has that knowledge, how much more challenging would it be for others? And a lot of insight into the older sector, specifically Medicare and Medicaid, and how their platform has helped those insurance providers know the ins and outs and make this really good match, right, with the people who would best benefit from the specific services that they're able to offer. And I think it's just a beautiful thing. I think we talked about how, as we get older, it's this inevitable thing for all of us. And it's nice to not have to think about it. But I think it's definitely worth paying attention to, because of the inevitability of needing that. And so, yeah, that's what Trusty.care is all about. And they're going to be switching, I think, to an international model eventually, and definitely worth checking out. Also, just a great company culture, talking about how they start that from the start with their interview processes, and how they're building Trusty.care, and great one. So check out that show. This week, we only have one show for you. It's going to be happening on Wednesday, the 23rd, but don't miss it. It's going to be with Seagram Pierce, who is the CEO of excuse me one minute, Stockably. And he's going to be talking all about revolutionizing media copyright and ownership for a prosperous future on blockchain. So all the blockchain enthusiasts, please be sure to check this out, and how more specifically we manage a global industry, and that's an global industry in media and copyright and usage fairly. So check that out Wednesday the 23rd, 10 o'clock Pacific, right here on Dojo Live. And until then, everyone, stay safe. Thank you, America.
We did it. Yay.
Yeah.